Ever since cities first evolved 9,000 years ago, the one thing that distinguishes the experience of living in cities from the experience of living in the country is what happens after dark. In the country, after the sun goes down, not much happens. All creatures, including humans, do what they've done since the beginning of time. They bed down for the night, shut their eyes, and go to sleep until the sun returns the next day. Not so in cities. In cities, there's nightlife. People aren't obliged to go to bed with the sun. That is partly because we evolved artificial light, but also because, in cities, there are always places to go and people to see after dark. I'm Ross Scogard, and I'm going to begin this introduction to my half of the exhibition, Living in Cities, by looking at two of my most recent paintings. They're both pictures of Toronto at night. This one is called Ryerson Avenue, which is west of Spadina, just north of Queen. There's still some working-class houses in the neighborhood, but just to the south and east is the financial district of Toronto, home to the one-time largest, biggest, tallest freestanding structure in the world, CN Tower. You'll notice the CN Tower is a kind of a recurring theme in the paintings of both me and my exhibition partner, Murray. That's because when you're in downtown Toronto, you can't escape the CN Tower. You can see it from everywhere, like the Eiffel Tower in Paris or the Empire State Building in New York. It's Toronto's great erection. This one's called Queen's Quay. There's the CN Tower again. I've got a few paintings in this show featuring views from a friend's apartment on the 30th floor of Harbor Square. This is one. Both these paintings were painted on black canvases. Other nightscapes are painted on black surfaces as well. That could be because basically I'm a lazy person, and also because the city at night is really just a pattern of electric light, street lights, car lights, beacons, windows against a black backdrop. The buildings, the trees, the sky all disappear at night. All you can see are points of light that indicate where people are and where they are going after dark. This painting is called The Western Gap. It shows the entry to Toronto Harbor, seen from the same apartment. If you think there's something funny about this painting, you're right. It's the light. It almost looks like the whole scene is underwater. That's because when I was printing out the reference photo, the printer was running low on magenta, or red ink. Therefore, the print I worked from is made out of blue, yellow, and black, but no red. For some artists, that would have signaled a trip to Staples and a new ink to reprint the photograph. But I've already admitted that I'm lazy, so I decided to try to work with what I had. The unbalanced light makes the city feel like a mirage, a hallucination, a city you might see in a dream. One thing I'd like you to notice, because it seems to be a compositional device that I return to again and again, you look down at the buildings at the bottom of the picture. The actual ground is way below your feet, but you can't see it. As your mind moves up, gradually you begin to look across the scene to the horizon, which is always at eye level at the top. With this picture, Avenue A, so we're going from my newest to my oldest painting in the show. I painted this 43 years ago. Good grief. I was living in Manhattan in a small loft at the corner of Avenue A and East 2nd Street. It was bordering a very bad neighborhood. Junkies or crackheads or whatever would use the payphone at the corner right outside my window. They would call their dealers on East 2nd Street between Avenues A and B to tell them they were coming by to score. One day there was a big bang. I looked out, and some guy on the phone had been shot. He fell against the doorway of my building. I was the one who called 911. But getting back to aesthetics, you'll notice quite a few similarities between this one and the previous painting. Both compositions begin with the foreground quite a distance below our feet and sweep up to a high horizon line. After I moved out of this loft, which was the nicest place I ever lived in Manhattan, I left something behind, intending to pick it up the next day, a portfolio of my best works on paper. When I went back the next day, it wasn't there. The landlord had thrown it out. I was devastated. I even took the ferry to Staten Island to go to the landfill where New York City dumped its garbage. I spent 2 hours until the sun went down, climbing over mountains of garbage. Just me and a couple of hundred seagulls picking over the same ground. I didn't find it. And unconsciously, I went into a sort of mourning. I banished color from my art. This picture of the Brooklyn Bridge was the result. A series of plein air cityscapes done with one randomly chosen color in white. If I try to unpack the emotional meaning of this series of monochrome paintings, I see stubbornness, I see anger, I see sullen acceptance of a psychic wound. New York City can be a harsh judge, but to have your best work, your heart and soul, tossed in the back of a garbage truck and shipped off to a Staten Island landfill, ouch, that hurts. But in painting, you don't just bring your sunny smiles and happy thoughts to the canvas, you bring what you can't hold back. So in these paintings, I'm looking at the city I love through narrowed eyes. You hurt me, you SOB. Jumping ahead a few decades, this is a view of another city I had the privilege to live in and love, Paris, France. This is the Tuileries Gardens, Les Jardins Tuileries, in the heart of the city, looking towards the Louvre. The high vantage point was provided by La Rue, the giant Ferris wheel that is now back in service in the gardens, affording tourists a pigeon's eye view of the City of Light. I lived in Paris in 1970 and 71. There was no Ferris wheel back then. And I had no interest in contemporary French painting, which at the time I believed to be crap. I was all into the New York school in 1970. But here I am, back in Paris, almost 30 years later, and you could say I'm all in with the School of Paris. The foreground, like in the scenes of Toronto and New York, is some distance below your feet. In the bottom of the painting, you're looking down. By the time you get to the high horizon line at the top, you're looking across the scene. Living in cities is what I've done most of my adult life. Paris, New York, and Toronto, I love them all. But by virtue of being a painter, and by virtue of my habit of painting whatever it is immediately in front of me, I've made this series of pictures of what I saw, and hopefully what I felt when I was living in these cities. Each picture is a portrait of a street in one of my hometowns. But of course, each picture is also a self-portrait. Thank you for coming to our exhibition, and thank you Quest Art and Gallery for this wonderful opportunity. And a special thanks to Jill Lefebvre for producing, recording, and editing these wonderful little video painting labels. Enjoy the show.